Hi everyone, this lesson is on the New Right view of the family. We're going to look at what do the New Right have to say, and we're going to evaluate their ideas. So firstly, I just want you to think of all the problems that the UK has at the moment, so make a list. Now look at your list and pick out all the problems that you think could be caused by the family and explain how the family could be a cause of those issues. So pause the video here. So hopefully you came up with some of these kinds of ideas. So things like knife crime, drug use, poverty, lack of education, unemployment. They're kind of common problems that our society faces. Now, New Right sociologists think that a lot of these issues are a result of family life breaking down. So they would say things like knife crime, drug use would be due to inadequate socialisation from parents, not raising children with the correct norms and values, which leads them to go off and commit these kinds of crimes. Poverty, the idea that the family is dependent on the welfare state rather than trying to go out and find work, and that actually dependency on the welfare state is passed down through the generations over time. Lack of education, again, parents not having those right norms and values, not valuing education enough and teaching their children that education is important. And lastly, unemployment. New Right sociologists would say that actually unemployment is something that is a result of families being dependent on the government for welfare and benefits. And people, are able to find employment, but they choose not to. So you can see the New Right perspective is, yes, obviously, as it says on the tin, more right wing. It is a political perspective, and it has close ties to the functionalist perspective. So the New Right's view is that fatherless families are mostly to blame for violent disorder. So the Daily Express claimed that we have bred feckless, lawless males who pass on their own children the same mistakes, that fatherlessness is the single most destructive factor in modern society. So it's quite a controversial point of view. They're very anti lone parent families in particular, because they believe that that lack of a father figure leads to inadequate socialisation and leads to the breakdown of society. So they're saying that society's problems largely fall on families that have broken down, so lone parent families in particular. So if you look at this clip on the Guardian's website, it talks about the riots that occurred in London in 2011, and David Cameron's in the House of Commons really talking about some of those causes of crime. And he actually references lone parent families and families that are broken in his own words, and really sort of highlights how they have been part of the problem and part of the riots and the cause of the riots. So again, you can see it's quite a controversial perspective, and it sort of champions the stereotypical nuclear family and other family types they see as inadequate or dysfunctional. So they say that the ideal family is the conventional couple, a heterosexual married couple with their children. So it's the sort of typical nuclear family. So they think that the dad goes out to work and his natural biological role is that of breadwinner, and the mum, her natural biological role is of housewife, and she stays at home and cares for the children, and the children are obviously dependent on their parents. So you can see that this is the same as the functionalist view. The difference between the New Right and the functionalist view is that the functionalist view is very positive. It sort of, yes, champions the nuclear family, but the New Right really pulls out some of the flaws of society based on family life. So the New Right perspective is more negative. The New Right argues that this family type is natural. They argue it's based on biological differences, which some feminists criticise. And they believe that the nuclear family is the cornerstone of society because it creates harmony and is a place of refuge for people. So the New Right argues that the decline of the nuclear family is the cause of social problems, as we've mentioned before. So they blame all kinds of things such as high crime rate, educational failure, poverty, unemployment on the family structures that we choose to be part of. And that there was just a picture of the riots, one of the buses being set on fire. So how do they think this works? So look at each type of sort of non-traditional family that leads to social problems in the eyes of the new right. So firstly, all I want you to do is complete these sentences. So with lone parent families, or parents with a single parent, families with a single parent, sorry, they would say this is harmful because they believe that the lone parent is not able to adequately socialise children, not able to teach them the correct norms and values, in particular fatherless families, because they believe the role of the father is to be the breadwinner, so bring the money into the household, and largely is in charge of discipline in the household. And if there's that lack of discipline, then it could lead to problems like crime. They also think mothers going out to work is an issue, and this is harmful because there isn't that person who is a full-time carer at home to focus on the raising of the children. The mother's role, if she's a breadwinner too, or if she is the sole earner in the household, that means that biological role that she has is not being done to its fullest potential. And then the last one, cohabitation, living together without being married, and divorce. They think these things are harmful because a breakdown of a relationship is more likely to occur in a cohabitating couple rather than a married couple, in their opinion. So a married couple, they believe, is more likely to stay together and provide stability to the children, whereas cohabitating couples are more likely to break up. And they think that this is going to have a negative impact on children because obviously they will see the breakup, it might emotionally harm or psychologically harm them. So the key sociologist who's associated with the New Right perspective is Charles Murray, and he wrote a book called The Emerging British Underclass. And the underclass is essentially a group of people that he believes are below the working class in society. So these people typically are in poverty. They are typically unemployed people who are unwilling to take on employment that is available, and they choose to live on benefits because they don't see the point of going out to work. Maybe because the benefits are more generous than the types of work that are available to them, or because they would rather be on benefits because it's their lifestyle choice. He believes also the underclass have illegitimate children. So what he means by that is children out of wedlock. So cohabitating couples that choose to have children and they are not married. He believes illegitimate children are more likely to drive or turn to crime and delinquent behaviour because they have an unstable home. He also believes that family gives children the values they grow up with. So you might grow up thinking that it's not desirable to get a job. And so the underclass passes on this lifestyle to its next generations. So the underclass who are in poverty pass on some of those norms and values that being unemployed is normal, that having illegitimate children is normal, and that being dependent on benefits is normal. And so their children end up being part of the underclass and don't really move into the field of work and move into becoming working class or middle class. So what he's saying is it leads to a sort of a cycle where the underclass passes on those norms and values and remains part of the underclass in future generations. So I want you to now think about, is the New Right perspective true? Is it a good description of family life? So there are two main ideas. Is one, the decline of the traditional family is the main reason for society's problems, and two, that marriage creates more stability than other family types. So there's some evidence on the next slide, and I want you to decide if it supports the New Right's ideas or if it's evidence against the New Right perspective. So I've done the first one for you. So Benson analysed data on the parents of over 15,000 babies born in 2000 to 2001. 3,000 of the mothers of those babies had become single parents in the first 3 years of the child's life. He found that only 6% of married couples had separated, but 20% of cohabitating couples had separated. So this supports the New Right's idea because the New Right perspective is that family life is more stable when parents are married compared to cohabitating. And we can see that from those statistics that supports that idea that married couples are more likely to stay together. So I want you to read the other ideas, the other pieces of evidence, and just do exactly what I've done there, put whether it supports the New Right's idea or is it an argument against the New Right perspective. And there's also an extension there. How do the New Right's views compare to views of other sociologists that we have learnt about? So is it similar or different? So the main criticisms then of the New Right perspective in summary are that feminists think the New Right wrongly assume that men's and women's roles are biologically determined. They think that this is not true. And actually in society these days, men and women are not doing biologically determined roles, they're doing roles that suit their family life. Feminists argue that the nuclear family is based on patriarchal oppression of women and is the cause of inequality in society because it assumes that women should stay at home and have that homemaking role. And lastly, the new right view that cohabitation does not equal commitment has been challenged, as in contemporary society many people permanently cohabit. So this might be because weddings are very expensive, or it might be because of secularization, which means that reduction in people being religious, so they don't sort of see that religious need to get married. So that perhaps we can say that in contemporary society things are changing somewhat. So just to end this lesson, what I would like you to do, and submit this on Show My Homework please, is I would like you to write a paragraph analysing the new right view of the family. So I want you to write a point, which I've already done here for you. For example, Murray argues lone parent families and cohabitating couples do not provide stable environments. And I want you to say this is because, why does he think this? Why does he think that lone parents and cohabitating couples can't provide those stable environments? So you want to use those key terms. You might want to talk about the underclass. You might want to talk about primary socialisation and learning norms and values and how that's more difficult with those family types according to the new right. And then I want you to give a criticism of the new right perspective. So you can use those pieces of evidence that you read earlier, or the previous slide that has some of those criticisms. Once you've done that, please submit on Show My Homework. Any questions, please email me. Thanks, bye.